Alright, lean in, because what you're looking at right now officially doesn't exist, or at least. It didn't until a few IRGC sailors in the Persian Gulf almost spilled their tea, when this ghost zipped past their speedboats at Mach Jesus. Everyone talks about the big aircraft carriers, the big, floating cities like the USS Gerald R, which, let's be honest, are basically the final bosses of the ocean. But while the world is staring at the big guys, the US Navy's Task Force 59 has been cooking something up in a secret garage in Bahrain that is straight out of a science fiction movie. We're talking about the GARC, Global Autonomous Reconnaissance Craft. It's small, it's angry, and it has more brains than a Harvard professor. This thing was supposed to stay hidden, but on April 24th, it accidentally showed the world exactly what happens when the Navy decides that humans are too slow for modern warfare. So, what is this thing? Imagine if a Tesla and a Predator drone had a baby, and that baby was raised by Navy SEALs, who only fed it protein shakes and violence. That is the GRC. It's an 11-meter autonomous interceptor. It doesn't need a captain, it doesn't need a crew. It doesn't even need a snack break. While an Iranian captain is busy trying to figure out why his GPS just started showing him in the middle of the Sahara Desert, thanks to US electronic warfare, the GRC is already behind him, mapping his entire hull with high-definition sonar. The GRC is packed with LiDAR, radar, and AI-driven thermal imaging. It uses a propulsion system that makes it almost silent. It's like a ninja that can swim at 65 miles per hour. But here is the part that should have stayed hidden. The Navy just tested it with a modular weapon station. Yeah, you heard me. They put a remote-controlled M240B machine gun and Switchblade 600 loitering munitions on a boat that drives itself. It's basically a Roomba, but instead of cleaning your carpet, it cleans the Strait of Hormuz of anything that looks like a threat. If I saw this thing coming at me in the dark, I wouldn't even fight. I'd just start writing my will. But the GRC is just the scout. The real reason the Middle East is currently sweating bullets is the triple threat deployment. Right now, we have the USS George H.W. Bush, CVN-77, the USS Abraham Lincoln, CVN-72, and the USS Gerald R, CVN-78, all within striking distance of each other. That is a wall of steel that can launch over 200 F-A-18 Super Hornets and F-35C Lightnings in under an hour. Think about that. That's enough air power to turn any country's air defense system into a very expensive collection of scrap metal. And leading the way, the destroyers. The USS Carney and the USS Arleigh Burke. These guys are the bodyguards with the Aegis combat system. The Aegis is basically a God mode cheat code. It can track a bird from 200 miles away and decide if it's a friendly seagull or a hostile anti-ship missile. If it's hostile, it launches an SM-6 missile that travels at 4 times the speed of sound. Imagine trying to dodge a telephone pole moving at 3,000 miles per hour. Spoiler alert, you can't. Now, let's talk about the mine incident from 3 days ago. The IRGC thought they were being sneaky, trying to drop EM-52 bottom mines in the shipping lanes. These aren't your grandpa's mines that float on top with spikes. These stay on the bottom and wait for the sound of a specific ship. But the Navy triggered something bigger. They deployed the Remus 600 UUV, unmanned underwater vehicle. This little yellow submarine looks like a giant banana, but it's a genius. It swam right underneath the Iranian mine layers, mapped the mines, and sent the coordinates back to a P-8 Poseidon circling at 30,000 feet. Before the Iranians could even finish dropping their third mine, a US Navy MH-60S Seahawk helicopter was hovering over them like an angry landlord. The message was clear: we see everything. Even the stuff you do under the water. Especially the stuff you think is hidden. Why hide this? Because the moment you show the world you have fully autonomous, weaponized swarms, the psychological warfare changes. If you are an enemy sailor, you aren't looking for a big ship anymore. You're looking for a ripple in the water. You're looking for a drone the size of a surfboard that can take out your entire bridge. The Navy wanted to keep the GARC's full combat AI a secret so that in a real war, the enemy wouldn't even know what hit them. But with tensions at an all-time high, the Pentagon decided to leak a little bit of the power. It's like showing a bully your brass knuckles just so he stays on his side of the playground. Now, if you think a self-driving boat is scary, wait until you meet the F-35C Lightning II. This isn't just a jet, it's a flying supercomputer that happens to carry missiles. But here's the thing that should have stayed hidden. The Navy doesn't just use these to drop bombs. They use them to despawn the enemy's electronics. The F-35C has something called the USS 239 Barracuda. Sounds like a fish, bites like a shark. It's an electronic warfare suite that can detect an enemy radar ping from hundreds of miles away, identify the exact serial number of the radar, and then jam it before the enemy operator even finishes his cup of coffee. Imagine you're a guy sitting in a surface-to-air missile battery. You see a tiny blip on your screen. You get excited. You think you've got a lock. Then, suddenly, your screen turns into a game of Tetris and your radio starts playing 80s disco music. That's the F-35C saying, "Nice try, buddy. Better luck in the next life." The US Navy isn't just patrolling. They are the world's most overqualified bouncers, and the ocean is their club. Now, here is the real reason this should have stayed hidden: quantum key distribution, QKD. Usually, when ships talk to each other, they use radio or satellites. Those can be jammed or intercepted. But the Navy is testing a system where the ships talk using quantum entanglement. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you a physics lecture. I know you're here for the explosions, not a PhD. Basically, it means if an enemy tries to listen in on the message literally changes its own shape and alerts the Navy. It is an unhackable phone line. This means the USS Gerald R can tell a submarine 200 miles away to fire a Tomahawk missile, and the enemy won't even see a single radio wave in the air. To them, it looks like the ocean just decided to start throwing missiles for no reason. It's like fighting a ghost that has a direct line to God's arsenal. Anyway, that's it for today's tactical breakdown. If you enjoyed seeing the Navy accidentally flex its muscles, hit that subscribe button. And remember, if you see a small black boat moving at 60 knots with no one driving it, just keep walking. You didn't see anything.